Well, good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, January the 6th, 2026. I just now saw a headline I wanted to catch up on real quick. The thing with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting has officially voted to dissolve itself. So that's kind of interesting. The NPR, PBS, and other member stations still exist independently, funded by member fees, donations, underwriting, and other non-federal revenue streams. But the coordinated funding structure provided is ending. Huh. Boy, this is going to be interesting. Wow. A world without PBS and NPR. Huh. And I know everybody's going to have an opinion on that, but I know in theory and partially in practice, that is kind of a big deal. But also with the I can't even say the word. With all the politics involved, I'll try that again later. But man alive, that's definitely goes to show kind of where I was going with the topic of things right now. Let me do my little edit here on this and get it pinned to the top. But wow, okay, so there's some real world things changing. But again, the local independent stations still exist, but they're going to have to rely solely on private funding versus what was happening with government funding. So, boy, man, that is something very interesting, huh? But again, it goes to the topic of today's show: humanity argues loudly while learning quietly, and it's so funny because that is such a true, I think, universal statement forever. But now it's all amplified in the way things are reported and done and so on. Man, wow. I don't know. That one just kind of struck me odd in just getting caught up on what's happening in the world. I'd heard about the funding thing, but I didn't follow it very much because, again, it's the smoke and mirrors, the rattling of the cages, and so on. And we've seen America. Let's admit it. We've seen a lot of crazy things in the past just 26 years. Wow. I tell you, that's interesting. It truly is. Uh, yeah, just totally caught me a little off guard there, but that's okay. We have coffee and we're just chatting and chilling and thinking about things inside of our closer circle because that's kind of a thing, isn't it? It's like if you're only perceiving the nation and the world through, once again, the box and what's being fed to us. I mean, there's a lot of heavy stuff going on right now, no doubt. But again, the way it gets sensationalized so you and I will pay attention to it is pretty interesting because it's just gotten so vile in that ring, or arena, if you will. I don't know. Wow, but yeah. So that one just caught me off guard. I was not expecting that. So if you're just now joining, what I'm talking about is that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting has officially voted to dissolve itself. So, but that again, they got rid of all the. That's just crazy. So let's see. Let's kind of get a little bit deeper on that. The board plans to file formal dissolution paperwork this month after its unanimous vote. Public media advocates hope that a future Congress might reestablish federal support, citing public broadcasting's role in education, culture, and civic information. Now, I agree that that type of entity really should exist. Now, now, I also see the argument when it comes to how a lot of the programming was steered in with political leanings that didn't really belong there. It's like, well, I'm saying unpopular things out loud. That's what I'm doing this morning, kids. But when you think about education and what does that mean at its core? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. But nowadays, it seems that a lot of educational issues and curriculum have a lot more things that are not to the benefit of reading, writing, and arithmetic. Plus, the way the world's changing, and again, we've homeschooled Caitlin forever, right? That was a thing that Alicia and I agreed upon long before she was born. So I'm not very familiar with what is or isn't happening inside of the public education. Oh, can you up your gain? Yeah, I guess I can. Or it may just be me being a little low. Why am I low this morning? How about that? Oh, damn, that doesn't look good. Let's see. How about now? How are we looking now there, Damien? Okay, yeah, okay. I thought you said, yeah. All right, we should be good now, right? I'm looking at the meters and they appear to be bumping properly, allegedly, possibly. So, quick mic check there. Thank you very much. That's another cool thing about live broadcasting in this manner, is it gives you the opportunity to get a check from the live audience as we go. Maybe because of the way I was holding my head at that point too, because I was looking at the screen a little too much. But yeah, so again, we've got such an interesting time in which we are alive, but that's always the case. I can't think of a time where it wasn't interesting, and many would frame everything that happened or any miscellaneous thing as the end of the world. And then here we are, all these years later, and the world didn't end. So it's just weird, man. But something to think about. And this is why, when it comes to doing something like the virtual stump and putting information out there in what I hope to be a centralized hub for people to follow, it's about your local level stuff, because that's truly what everything really runs on, right? The federal funding aspect is necessary, of course, because the way the monetary system works, I say the monetary system, but really the financial system, the way it works, we are truly a debtor's nation. If you don't think so, then you obviously have never paid taxes or participated in the system as a whole. And that's not being facetious when I say that. It's just, it is what it is. Very peculiar. I don't know. It was muffled, huh? Yeah, it was probably because the way I had my head turned. Let me check the mic. Make sure I have it on in the right direction, pointing as so the microphone pattern picks up where I need to be. But yeah, I don't know. That one kind of. Can you imagine a world without PBS, Gen X? I mean, that's really the early days that I know you and I were ingrained in with it, or it was ingrained into us, I should say. I mean, that's where I discovered Doctor Who, the Tom Baker years, on the PBS station, Channel 2, and AETN, the Arkansas Education Television Network, and a lot of all the other stuff, that's been great. But I can also see where, when it comes to, like, in the past few years, we're trying, and I believe that people had, from their perspective, the best of intentions in trying to discuss societal and cultural matters inside of children's programming, but maybe too soon. When you've got Sesame Street addressing certain persuasions, I don't think that's a conversation for little kids, ever, 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 because that's not what they're in for, but unless you are molding and framing a society in the way in which we see things and the way we participate. Yeah, 6 extinction. Yeah, we've done it. 6 extinction level events. I tell you what, speaking this morning has been a joy. I'll be completely honest with everyone. Last night was a rough night for sleeping. It didn't work out well, and it was totally my own doing. But as you can hear, and I think I can hear too, sinuses are finally starting to lay up and get back to normal, which is good, because that wasn't fun. But last night's endeavor of sleeplessness was totally my own fault. I won't go into any particular details because I'm sure you don't want to know, but the particular ham sandwich I had made for myself was not the greatest idea. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, sometimes the labels aren't correct. So I will now chalk it up to 7 extinction level events that I myself personally have survived. But anyway, but yeah, it's Tuesday. We're still rolling through the first official week of 2026. And very productive day. But again, it's still the beginning of the year, and so many things are now all on the plate for me. Like Thursday night, 8 p.m., the first official virtual stump show, I'm calling it. It's like getting used to the vernacular, what to call something. Podcast, live stream, show, I don't know. But the features are being built right now. And because I want it to be a very genuinely informational and edutainment style, which is going to grow as we go, because it's like right now I've got it slotted as an 8-episode season that starts this Thursday and rolls all the way up to the primary election in March, mainly because I want people to have the opportunity and take the responsibility to learn more about what is going on the ballot statewide, because locally we've got a few things that I know we need people to understand and do so in and I hope, and I truly hope, a realistic way, because One of the things coming up is we've got a couple infrastructure there. It's infrastructure needs when it comes to the taxes, and they're the little taxes that were. There's a sunset clause on them, so they've got to be renewed again. And that funding goes for like police and fire and stuff like that. Now, I've seen people arguing about it online as like, well, if it's got a sunset, it needs to go. Well, the problem is that when it was passed, it needed the sunset clause to pass because people have some unrealistic perceptions when it comes to taxes, right? In a civilized society, working and living collectively, we have to have certain things that we collectively pay for, right? We just do. And sales tax is probably the fairest way to do that because it's more usage than anything else. And you're looking at like a quarter and maybe half a cent sales tax across the board on these things. Pardon my lack of detailed information on that at the moment. But the truth of the matter is that's just how our society works. Now, when it comes to like the bond issues for like short-term things, I'm not going to. Well, like Creekside, okay? When they put that in, as far as like the tax to pay for that, and it'll be there until it's paid for, that's a different discussion, right? But I understand the reasoning behind it, but I also understand the dissent behind it. But that's something to truly debate and work out. But I would hate to see the baby get thrown out with the bathwater when it comes to vital services. That again, there was just positioning and propping up to make people happy that okay, well, we're going to do this. I know you're unhappy about new taxes, but this is a sunset thing, and so it will go away. But of course, it would not go away because it's an infrastructure thing. So all the nonsense, but it's the noise that people get caught up in. Nobody likes paying taxes, but everybody prefers paved roads and working water systems and things like that. I don't know. It's just it boils down to where politics truly is a performance art, and if you don't like the performer on the stage, it doesn't matter what the benefit would be. If you don't like the performer, you're not going to listen to the show. It's just not going to happen. So there's that, which is funny because this kind of segues and transition to like once I was done for the stuff that I needed to do for the day, and kind of just went surfing around on the YouTubes and things to just kind of do the mind dump and clear things out. I started getting stuff in my feed for like people who were like checking out China for themselves firsthand. And when you see the big cities there, and they're the future. I mean, when you see this, you're like, whoa, wow. Now, why exactly aren't we doing this? And again, this is not rooting for a particular ism to live by. It's just simply looking at the way these places are constructed and built and very much technologically advanced. But then as I pondered it and considered those things, well, one of the things when it comes to like comparing east to west on that we don't necessarily think about, or I didn't think about, how about that? But you figure our infrastructure was built as we're spread way out. And so the infrastructure that was needed at the time is also equally spread out. Problem is, it is getting old and worn. Let me take a look at this real quick. Damien says, all right, can you tell me why I have half the pool we were sold and now have to pay for going into the supposed free new rec center because to me the local government doesn't give a floating rat turd about what the locals want. See, and that's a fair statement. But now here's the part where it gets interesting in the conversation. I cannot speak specifically to full motivation. Let me say that right up front. Because, again, I had stepped out of the arena at that point, right? I knew it was going to happen. I knew something along the aquatic center was going to be a thing. I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to say from my perspective at the time and what I understood and what was coming with it. One of the things about what it was to be and why it was to be, quite frankly, wasn't about the local community in and of itself. It was mainly for attracting what was the word? Let me get the phrase right, because now this is a fact. Okay, this I do know. Oh gosh, it was about attracting retirees to Harrison, and I cannot remember that proper term. That's kind of escaping me right now. It'll come back, but that was it. It was a matter of in trying to bring more people to Harrison to actually relocate, move, and enjoy the rest of their lives. That was one of the projects that were seen as a benefit to that end. Okay, damn, I can't remember that term to save my life, but it was, but again, active retirees. That was it. Active retirees is what the aquatic center and a lot of things like that were tailored for. Um, that I know is a fact. That just is it. I remember seeing the local discourse over it because, and I myself, as far as opinion goes, I see that with the youth center and the Brandon Burlsworth Youth Center and all the amenities there, I can't say I could ever agree to not looking into expanding that. But again, that's not my role or what I do. I can have an opinion like anybody else, but that made more sense to me. But at the same time, we could look at it from a perspective of, well, new construction is more affordable long term than working with old construction and renovating and things like that. So I can see both sides of that. But I do know, and it goes back to that presentation thing, whoever the performer on the stage is, and how they, I mean, you could be like the biggest fan in the world of uh, a beloved play like, oh, or movie or anything. Okay, let me try to think of something here. Okay, we'll use a Star Wars thing, right? If you were a Star Wars fan or a Star Wars fan, and Han Solo was your guy, and it was portrayed perfectly by Harrison Ford, when they come along all those years later, and they do a new Solo film, and it's supposed to be young Han, and they get a guy that's not Harrison Ford portraying the role, if no matter how close he sticks to the mythos of the character, it ain't Harrison Ford, it don't feel right. Does that analogy kind of make sense? So when you have someone who's presenting something, well, okay, I'll go deeper and back further. See, one of the things that I find interesting, and again, I was out of the loop at that point. I was out of the loop. I pulled away. I wasn't covering anything. I wasn't having conversations with anybody on the public leadership level, so I can't speak to much. Now I know what happened before, but I know for years before he was mayor, and then when he became mayor, during the Jeff Crockett administration, Jeff had been pushing for like a YMCA to come into Harrison as the organization itself, because the mindset was when you have that established body, the franchise, if you will, you had certain safeguards in there, but that never did materialize. And so there it is there. But eventually things came to be where we have the aquatic center at Creekside, right? And there is a disdain amongst the public about it. So how do you reframe that or do something that, I don't know. Since it's there, it's like, well, what do you do now? It's like you can sit here and kick and scream about it all day long, but it doesn't change the fact that it's there. And I personally have not been inside of that building. All of Creekside, I have not been inside. I've walked by the front of it, and where you can look and see the pool in there, which is kind of weird to me, but that's just me. And I've been on we'll call it the campus of it, is for like the circus last year, or year before last now, and it was like, okay, got plenty of parking because it is the old junior high and all of that. But I don't know. I really don't. I'm not, I know my opinion on it is kind of moot because I don't use it and I don't have a reason to use it. There's nothing that is attracting myself or my family to go use it. So I have no dog in the fight in that experience aspect of it. I can just observe what people are saying. And one of the things I do know, and this is one of the things, um, excuse me. Now, again, not really we're going to end due to our general displeasure with the local government, and then there's the call center they want to open. Okay, now here's the thing with the call center. Now, the call center thing, now that is a private company. Yes, the city did make concessions for said company to come in. That won't be interesting to see. I've got my questions about it for whatever worth they may be. It's like, because if it's a call center and it's a IT data type thing, my biggest question, considering how long-term this agreement is, and there's a lot of money on the table with it for that the city has to provide to bring that building to where it needs to be. And the old Leffler's building, again, I haven't been in there in years, but the times I did go in there, just talking to folks who were there, um, it was not in the best of shape. And but everything can be fixed. Everything can be fixed. But what about this particular company who's doing this call center? I think looking into it, it sounds like a great idea right now, right? Because they can move in to the smaller rural communities to establish something like this, which I think that's good because it adds something to the local economy and opportunity. I'm cool with that. Downtown most certainly needs it now more than ever because when you consider that the Boone County Courthouse is about to be completely empty very soon. Like by the end of February, most any and all relevant offices are going to be moved over to the new government center, which is the old Methodist Church over at the end of Caps and Goblin, right? So that building is not going to be providing the downtown traffic that it wants, that it has for a very long time. Something has to be there. Otherwise, people will not go down there. Let's be real. Um, Yeah, see, now the thing about they want to bring people to work there, as far as moving people in versus hiring local, see, that's a matter of conjecture because I haven't heard anything one way or the other about it, right? I don't know if that's actually true. I know people have said it, but I don't know if that's true. Okay, because again, I don't know. I personally think that would be insane if they were to bring something in like that meant to stimulate the local economy and did not hire at least a significant percentage of local people to fill positions. But I don't know. But now here's the other side. This is my question. And again, this is just my opinion, observation. I am not involved in the discussions, have not been involved in the discussions, and don't want to be involved in the discussions. But just sharing my thoughts and opinions, when it comes to anything based in IT, and any technology things right now. What is that company doing to ensure they themselves will be relevant over the span of this 5-year agreement? Because, like I shared that, I shared that cartoon from my 2026 Dilbert calendar from Scott Adams, and it's funny. I can pull it up on screen, but you can just go look at the feed. Let me just look at it. I'll pull it here right in front of me, though. It's like you got Dilbert. Let me get on my cheaters. It would be easier to read on the screen, but I'm going to do it like this instead. Old school. But, the robot who reads the news, if you haven't seen that particular strip, which is really funny. Anyway, the robot says, Elon Musk is warning the world that AI could be a threat to mankind. Dilbert replies, we humans won't go without a fight. Robot says, look at this viral video on social media. To which Dilbert replies, hee hee, what were we talking about before? And the robot replies, poignantly, you're mistakenly believing you haven't already lost the war. See, and that's where I say that a lot of folks will have a lot of great ideas. But how long term is that great idea? I don't know. I really can't say, but I do know on my end, from the things that I do day to day and the tools and resources that are available, and what's coming out system wide in things, that people, I don't think people are really paying attention due to distractions, and that's a shame. And therein line we go back to things like this dissolution of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. See, when something is coming as the inevitable and unstoppable, such as technological changes and advancements, right? That's where it would be great for a PBS and an NPR to help move that message and education and understanding forward in an unbiased, non-political way. Because we need that. We do. The society needs to be informed and educated on stuff. And hopefully in somewhat of an entertaining way. You hope. But everything has just gotten so politicized. And in that, I will say that the ones who have done that, promoted and pushed leanings one way or the other, are a true disservice to we, the American people, or we, the Arkansans, inside of the borders in which we live. Because they've got a responsibility that the public deserves at least the middle of the road presentation. before they try to sell us something, especially if they've already done it and they're trying to sell us on what they've already done without our opinion. And our elected government, our elected representatives are truly the ones to be held to account. But when you look at the way that's evolved or devolved into party politics at every turn, I guess interesting because you can have a local person who makes it to the, we'll say, the big dance in D.C., right? Goes in either the House or the Senate, uh, but it's a majority rule type thing, and if they don't have enough people siding with them because of party politics, well, then Houston, we do have a problem. So how do we resolve that? I don't know. Other than the best I know I can do is to create something like the virtual stump where you can have a centralized location to see and hear from the people who want to represent you and are willing to step into that civic duty role, to where you can match names with faces and not just a name on a sign on the side of the road in a cluster like they're hoarding up for like, oh, I don't know, like they're migrating, like when birds like all flock together as they're heading north or south for the winter. But it's funny, man, when you see them all just pop up right there, and there's like 20 or 30 of the signs right there. You see all these names, but who are they? You see the name, but who are the people? And of course, they all have to do their campaigning so they can get to know you and you get to know them. But that can be difficult, and it's hard to balance because it takes money to do these things. And the best that I feel I could do in that is to offer a platform that costs nothing for anybody, be it the candidate or the voter, aka the consumer, to at least have one spot where they could look that didn't cost a dime. It was like what I did with the 72601 Life Guide. It's all I did was reshine the phone book, basically, because again, there's a million forms of information out there, but there's no centralized source. We no longer have, except this people, we no longer have a centralized source for our information and entertainment. It's scattered all over the place. And it's probably never coming back ever. The best it could ever hope to be, and again, this is not pedestalizing myself at all. It's just what makes sense to me. So I'm like, well, I might as well do it. In putting together these hubs, right? Because I still have that broadcast mindset that if you have a radio station, you want to have a radio station that people want to tune in for important things. And you got the important things is it's like your news product should never have been abandoned. I mean, period. But that's the first thing that went out the damn window. The news product suffered the most first, when it's the benchmark of everything of your broadcast day. That's why your television stations like KY3, and I forgot all the rest of them because they don't brand themselves well enough for me. I just forgot them. So anyway, but your news product, that should be your linchpin, because if you're basing it on the entertainment programming, like the music rotation or primetime television shows or daytime shows, those are the candy. And those are great, but they rotate out. They go up, they go down, they come in, they go away. And so it's a balance in programming, especially when you're in such a locked environment, because each one of those entities, radio and television, they only have 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. So they don't have too much. Radio has more freedom than television for various obvious production reasons and so on. But when you can't please everybody all the time, right? So that said, if I was still in radio and actually programming, a lot of the efforts would be going back into the news department. You guys might remember these days where you would have a top of the hour and bottom of the hour news recap thing. Real simple, 60 seconds, just get you up to par on what all's coming. Well, that's not there. And so the relevance of having radio as a thing is more novelty than usefulness. Yeah, well, see, and there will be one party shortly, Damien says, and he's not wrong. Where we are, and this is the hardest pill for all, especially we Americans we are the John Wayne apple pie generation. This is just my perspective, okay? But we really grew up with that embedded in us when it comes to that American dream, right? Our fathers and grandfathers, they really were there and all in the building of the society that we came to know and love in the 80s and 90s, and that infrastructure, right? But as time went on, things changed in how all that worked, and things crumbled, and this, that, and the other, and politics got more and more involved versus practicality. Now, a lot can be said, fingers can be pointed, and it wouldn't be necessarily wrong, but it goes to show that when you and I don't stay active, engaged, and informed, even on the basic local level of things, that's when it spirals out of control. But all we're wanting to do is just be able to live, right? People want to live. They want to be able to go to work, do the 40-hour promise, right? The 40-hour promise, and then be able to cover all the things they need to do to pay the mortgage, pay the lights, pay the water, all the stuff that we need to do to have a comfortable life. And then hopefully make enough to where some can be put back into savings for the bigger ambitions of, going on vacations and things like that. That's not working so well anymore unless you go into a debt system like a credit card. And therein lies where it appears that things are still moving forward in a productive manner when it's kind of an illusion. But it is what it is right now. I'm not looking to change and champion a whole new system at all. Not at all. Not a bit. I am not qualified for that. The best I am qualified for, that I've been working to do every day, is to just share information as middle of the road as possible so you feel engaged enough to either look deeper or take that at face value, and you make your decisions as you go. That's truly the best I've ever been able to do when it comes to doing. If I say that I am doing the news, to me, I define the news as who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? That's the way you framed a story. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. That way, it is what it is. As soon as there's any type of slant or opinion from that news person, it went out the window, period. Like, okay, for instance, let's talk about like structuring a story for broadcast, okay, using the old UPI system or method. It's like first sentence, who, what, when, where, why, okay? There you go. That's your first sentence. Try to get it in 10 words, nice, tight, and concise. Then from there, you go into more details of what those who, what, when, where, whys are. And then when you get into the how should be more of the history of how we got here, right? And that's how you frame a UPI formatted news story, right? And it's a good system. It works. It's like if you follow those steps, you got a nice, concise story in 6 sentences. And then you can always go deeper. But the problem is when you get down to that last part that should be the history, when the how gets turned into not just, okay, this happened here and this happened here. Done. But when you get into the this happened, but then this happened, so then this happened. How true is that particular stack? Don't know. But in presenting a news product, as far as I'm concerned, that part, the details are all you need, not the but thens. So therefore, great storytelling, but not for news. But anyway, I digress on that. But I don't know. Again, it's like just thinking about it. The bigger thing, I think, if I can give you anything of productivity this morning, would just be consider that when it comes to humanity as a whole, again, I just that line that I pulled up this morning for what's happening there, that humanity argues loudly while learning quietly. Because I can think of many a times in life where I've seen myself go full hot-headed route, and in doing so, seeing along the way that, oh, that was dumb. Yeah, maybe I was wrong. But I don't say that part out loud. Or I did. I do now. If I find that something that I may stand on a soapbox with and I'm really going at, then my perspective changes because of circumstance, observations, and real world experience. I'll tell you, nowadays, younger, no, I wouldn't. Most folks, it's a pride, fear, ego thing that's just not good. But we're all growing together. I at least hope we all are. We're all growing and learning and sharing in that manner, and we will. But one of the bigger things I have when it comes to like this sales tax issue, and this is something that I do want to stress as far as like top of mind stuff for you, is that when you have something like this tax measure on that March primary ballot, people in the county need to understand that while they cannot vote on that matter since it's a city matter, even though everybody in the county does most, if not all, of their business in the city, it's still the city and the city's citizens say, right? But don't let that discourage you in the county because the county's population is larger than just the city's population. But if people from the city are the only ones who show up at the ballot because of the tax issue, they also control the rest of the ballot. So, what does that mean? It means if you want as best as equal representation as you can get as a county and all the smaller cities, then you have to take that initiative to come in just like the city and vote, even though the bigger issue, if you will, is the tax thing. But don't let that dissuade you in the county from participating in the election. It's a midterm. Midterms are never sexy. Turnout is always low. And that's a shame because I don't know. So I'm hoping that maybe possibly with what I'm doing with this virtual stump platform is to encourage you to get mindful, at least know that it's happening and existing as far as what's on the ballot and who's on the ballot. But get engaged. It really doesn't take you long. When we have early voting in the state of Arkansas, and with early voting in the state of Arkansas, it gives you a good long window to be able to just go cast your vote. Now, the polling precinct, you have to go to the election center, right? Downtown Harrison, easy to get to, the old Vision Video. And everybody in that office does a fantastic job. They really do. They are ready for you. Answer any and all questions you have. And that's throughout the entire election cycle, every single one of them. We have an incredible office there. We really, really do. But that said, just take that extra step, that extra 5, 6, 12, 20 minutes to just go do that. If you know election day itself may not work out for you, but that's when all the precincts are open. So it's closer to you at that point. But it's just the reminder aspect. The candidates, they're the ones reminding you about things. And so, again, it's all about the performer on the stage. If you don't like the particular performer and they're the ones who are talking about it, well, you're going to tune them out. But there could be another performer on the stage that you would like, but you're just not familiar with them because they don't have the reach because of cash or whatever else. And that's why the virtual stump is born. It's just in my nature. It's like that one thing that I hope I can do to be better for. I think, well, isn't that a taxation without representation situation? See, that the taxation without representation when it comes to all of these things. Here's the problem. Because since we still have a representative government, we are still, the public, relying on our representatives to represent us and reflect what we want. However, that now elected representative who's serving in those roles, frankly, knows more about what's going on than we, I don't want to say common, he doesn't common, we're all awesome, but we the people may not be privy to. So it is on them to show you why. But there is so much sometimes, or they're compromised with politics more so than people. But the hope of the system is that with the as long as you, the people in an area, have representation, then you do have you've got representation. So the taxation isn't coming without representation, but the communication gets mumbled, jumbled, or just not there. And that's where, again, it's a collective personal responsibility thing that we all have to make and take. If we don't participate, even in the most simple, okay, think about it like this, and this is where I will defend traditional media with newspaper, radio, and television, because at one point these type of things were there. It was a regular feature type thing in whether it broadcast or article or whatever. But when people got bored with it and tuned out that time, Well, they had to replace it with something else because they got to keep attention. And if that's what's losing attention, then you kill it. Well, therein lies just the problem, because you can't force someone to listen, watch, or read. You just can't. You can try, but excuse me. But the onus comes in making those things that matter interesting and entertaining to where they do, or at least make it short to where they can get it and get out. You know, it's sort of like you got to take this spoonful of medicine to get rid of the cough. Okay, it tastes like hell, but it's going to work. But if you just do it real quick and you don't have to go through a 7-month treatment plan to get rid of a little cough, you'll do it. And so, again, it's like it's about personal responsibility as we grow. I really that's really something that I embrace wholeheartedly, to try to make it as interesting and pithy and to the point as possible, and do something. And the trick is, though, to be honest with you, for me in working on the virtual stump feature material, I'm trapped in my own perspective of what is entertaining and informative, because that's all the feedback I really got until I put it out. And then I can see what pops. Okay, this cough is coming back. Hold on. So the hope is that what I put together is interesting enough and does the job of what it needs to do in telling a story quickly, to where people will accept the fact that otherwise you don't care, because it doesn't directly impact you until it does. And I apologize. I'm going to wrap this up because this cough is getting out of control in this manner with me talking so much. But because they don't get to vote for it. Okay. Well, now, if the county residents get no benefit from a city tax, that seems wonky because they don't get to vote for it. Okay, now here's the thing, though. If you're coming into the city from the county to utilize any of the city services, such as the roads, such as the water, such as the businesses that are here, you are utilizing those tax dollars. Now, when you get into the specific things, like, say, Creekside and the Aquatic Center, that's a little different, but that is also city, right? But if you got to pay the sales tax for city stuff, yeah, see, and again, we've got so many nuances to how our system works that any one thing can get flipped on its head, manipulated and twisted for the benefit of, it's like all the, like, redistricting is like legal gerrymandering. It's really the only way you can see it. And that's problematic. It's like, okay, for instance, and this is a big, broad, general national thing, but I'm curious, or the question came in my head and I haven't looked into it, but when it comes to like California, I think we're going to see a lot of shifting in California because so many major corporations have left California and like relocated to Tennessee or to Texas. Their numbers, the census count that determines representatives and senators, well, representatives, not senators, everybody's got 2 of those, but for representatives, that should be going down, as well as their electoral college votes, because the population is decreasing. Now, how will that work out? I don't know. I'll give you a conspiracy. You want a conspiracy? We haven't had a good one in a while. I think this one's interesting. Okay, now, for the longest time, the big conspiracy has been that the earthquakes along that western seaboard are going to cause part of California, a big chunk of part of California, to fall off into the Pacific, right? What if that actually they that run the show are actually trying to get ahead of that inevitable big falling off of the side of the western part of the country in California, that they are doing this whole get out of California thing for the hope that the people will leave so they can do a mass evacuation without it looking like a mass evacuation. But that would be kind of a hopeful thing, right? Because if you told everybody, well, this whole thing is going to fall in, they would go like get the whole Jor-El treatment on Krypton. Oh, you're nuts, Jor-El. But I don't know. That's just a silly conspiracy. I'm going to wrap this up. It's 8:44. It is 56 with a beautiful day in the lower 70s expected in the winter. Like, this is like tracking to be like one of the warmest winters in a while since the last warmest winter that they tracked. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, Damien, definitely thank you for your insight and your thoughts and your perspectives, because they're important, and that's what stuff like this is for. It's about having conversations and putting out there things that people can think about and chew on. Because if we don't, then somebody else does the thinking and chewing for us. So, and they still do, but we can make it to where they understand that we are paying attention. And that's what we have to do, is personal responsibility. We hope for the best. Anyway, let's get out of here, gang. I have got to get ready for a thing, and then I got to get rid of this silly cough this morning. But anyway, have a great one, gang.